Okay, so the data center skills challenge, I mean, I think it's very much acknowledged by the industry that there's a potential shortage, but I don't see anyone sort of breaking out of sweat or panicking about it. It should they be, or what? You know, where are we?
Yeah, Phil, you're right. It's very well documented. I mean, Uptime in their recent research said sort of half of the applicants were sort of actively recruiting, and then other half of the respondees were sort of struggling to attract and retain the staff. So I think it is an industry-wide problem, but panic hasn't set in yet. There is a lot of competition for spaces. I think we're sort of seeing that. Especially the hyperscalers, they're kind of really managing to attract and grab talent. They probably have the bigger budgets and the sort of prestige of the name, but certainly other areas of the industry are sort of struggling to retain. Sort of within our own kind of area of sort of digital twins and simulation, we're seeing there's a lack of engineers who can do that role, and certainly our customers who are using our software to do the assessment work and the design, they're sort of too busy to take jobs on and having to sort of subcontract out and further. So there's definitely a shortage, and I think that means the prices are going to go higher for sort of service elements, and you might see kind of bigger lead times for certainly kind of consultancy work and yeah, but you're right. No panic yet, but we'll see. How far we go before that does set in.
I mean, in terms of how this situation has come about, I mean, everyone likes to blame somebody. I mean, is there a particular thing that's caused it, or is everyone taking their eye off the ball, or as everyone says, STEM subjects in school? Does it start there, and there's just not enough? The pipeline's not big enough. What your thoughts as to why it's got to this stage, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think it's been ignored. I mean, I've definitely sat in data center conferences for the last 20 years, and that there's always been a part of it where we talked about the skill shortage. So I think people are aware of it. I think data centers just aren't really an appealing place to work if you take it as a box of electronics that's hot and noisy and they're always in the middle of nowhere. And I think that the industry has had to work hard to think about how do we recruit talent in. And if we step back and think, actually, data centers are such a hotbed for technology. They really are. They underpin everything in society. So the linkage between the technology that's the infrastructure that runs our daily lives and getting people to recognize that, and rather than thinking, oh, my photos just live in the sky and the cloud, really understanding what that means. And also the fact that the data center industry has been kind of slow to adopt, especially when you think of the data center itself, slow to adopt new technology and felt kind of almost like a building services problem, whereas the IT and everything going inside the IT changes at such a rapid rate. So I think we've kind of sat back a little bit and gone, we'll be okay. But I think we do need to see some changes. There are, university places are starting to run data center courses. That's really good. So we might see sort of an influx of young talent coming in. But on the other side, we're hearing a lot of our great leaders who are sort of retiring or getting to retirement age. So, we maybe we've sat back a little bit, and there'll be a bit of a rush to get new talent in, and hopefully that's good for everybody in the industry. Yeah.
And in terms, I mean, technology, I guess, has a role to play, and to help address the problem, I guess, and I suppose in terms of helping people develop their skills or give them skills, but also, I mean, the great AI explosion, whatever we want to call it, is on the horizon or is beginning to happen, and potentially can do tasks that humans have once done. So I suppose in simple terms, what is the potential for technology to help, if not paper over the cracks, if that's what we're calling, but at least help address the human skill shortage? What can technology do?
Yeah, definitely. There's two main areas there. You touched on both of them. It's how do we train up our people, and how can we help them with technology, and then effectively, if we're short on human resource, how do we help them do more with less? And I think technology has a lot of place there to help in both of those areas. So specifically, if you're thinking about sort of training and helping people kind of skill up, There's technology like augmented reality or virtual reality where we can kind of transport them into the data center and into doing training exercises and learning about the site and the kind of jobs they'll be doing. Obviously a big one for us at Cadence is digital twins, so giving them a complete virtual replica of the data center where they can try things out. And then you sort of mentioned AI and machine learning, and I think that's kind of interesting in a few ways. So generative AI or sort of the technology behind ChatGPT is really exciting because it actually allows you to put a layer on top of quite complex technology and allows individuals just to ask questions just using common language. So you could have and what we're seeing is technology is getting more and more complex in the data center. But if you can basically put an interface where somebody with a little bit of training can say, how do I take this UPS into bypass? Just normal language, and then it gives you the steps and say, right, this is the next step, and it's all there. If you imagine, even with an AR or a VR headset, can be taking you through those steps. So I think that kind of technology will really help individuals kind of do more and learn quickly. And you're seeing a real rush now. Every vendor in data centers is trying to put a sort of chat bot with ChatGPT kind of embedded in there. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we'll see technology lend a hand, just to help skill us up quickly and then help us do more automation. A lot of the tasks that we do in the simulation environment, we can actually automate a lot of that. So not necessarily you have to do manually spend time with these models. We can connect them into live systems and they'll kind of operate themselves. So that's where we see it going.
And so, you give brief descriptions of digital twins and augmented virtual reality. Perhaps in a bit more detail, you can explain the full potential, or maybe even what's like. I'm sure it's already being used, but where you think it can end up in terms of the contribution it can make to the data center environment would be great to understand.
Yeah, sure. I mean, digital twins are interesting because they're kind of helping in a couple of ways. The first one is automating and streamlining a lot of those jobs that we're doing. Take us back a few years, and if you were trying to do something in a data center, you would probably have to walk the floor. So let's take a deployment. Let's say we want to deploy something in a data center. You'd walk the floor and have a look for some space. You might do some clamping of power to see what power is available. You might have to chat to somebody in facilities about what cooling is available. You give the people in networking a ring and go, where's this server that's running this service that I need to connect into? Digital twins, brilliant. Bring it all together. It's all in one place. So none of that manual ringing around trying to find information. We've got it all centralized. So that's great. So if I'm trying to make a future change, or I'm thinking about a capacity plan or something, I've got all of that great information in one area. So that's brilliant. The next one is then the jobs that are done. Can we automate or can we streamline a lot of those things? And that also can be done. So when we talk about digital twins, if you're thinking about, I want to run a maintenance schedule where I want to fail, I'm taking down all of my cooling units one at a time to clean them. We can just run that automated bunch of scenarios to say, actually, if you take down the one in the corner, you're going to overheat that corner. So we're going to have to think about something else with the controls or maybe additional cooling. So we can kind of get ahead of any problems. And that can all be done without any user interfering with it. It just happens and it gives you a report at the end. So automating is great. And then if we stitch in AI and thinking about like getting machine learning to help with those challenges, where's the best place to put this cabinet? There's so many bits of information that will be part of that challenge. You need cooling, you need power, you need the data network connectivity. Some of the customers we have weight challenges where certain parts of the floor can't hold the new machine learning 5G racks. So there's all these important parts to consider, and if it's a perfect challenge for machine learning, so that can basically spit out some optimized locations, and then that can be running the simulation and then giving you that as a report to say this is the place that you want to deploy to. So that could take a month's work and package it up into an overnight simulation kind of thing, or a couple of hours. So really accelerating those kind of challenges. That's really exciting for digital twins. And then the other part was you asked a bit about VR and AR. and we've done a lot in the past with particularly VR when it was the early days, and the tech wasn't quite there. And we take it to conferences, you put it on people's heads, and they walk around the data center and get a little queasy, and quickly get out and go, "This isn't. I can't see myself ever working in this environment." So the good news is the tech's come on an awful long way. Those kind of early glitches around kind of tricking the brain to putting you somewhere else have kind of been ironed out. So that's great. So let's take virtual reality first. This is where you put your headset on and you're transported anywhere in the world. So you're just looking at basically a virtual replica, and that's really useful for training, being able to go through sort of maintenance scenarios, taking things offline, just skilling up our people basically. So it's a really good one. And also with the kind of the shift from you're managing this one large data center, that's your one, to moving to you're managing now 300 or 400 small edge data centers, which you're not physically going to be able to get to all the time. VR is perfect for that kind of arena. So we're seeing a lot of movement in VR. And then augmented reality, so that is where you're putting kind of maybe some glasses on, where you can see the data center, the actual physical data center, but we can overlay some digital information, and that hasn't been around for a long time, but now we're definitely seeing that the tech is ready, and we're working with a great company called DC Vision that we're working on integrating, where we can walk down the data center, walk down an aisle, and actually get information about what we're looking at, get the asset information, get the simulation. So we know, why is this hot? I can feel it's hot. I've no idea why. The augmented reality, if you look at that, will be able to show you where the hot air is coming from and be able to trace that problem back. So really exciting kind of future there for us to be able to skill up and understand kind of complicated problems. And we kind of see AR kind of being the start of this journey where actually, walking around with a headset, it might not be a headset, it could be a smartphone or a tablet, is actually part and parcel of process and your daily job. So yeah, we're interested in both of those areas, and I think there's a good future for that technology.
And in terms of the industry as a whole needing to encourage youngsters, I guess, to join, but also giving them a career path, do you think these kind of digital techs are a part of the solution? I mean, because without wishing to sort of stereotype, a lot of these youngsters, are excited by VR, AR in their private life, shall we say, and they use it and stuff. So if they find an environment where they can use it in the work, is that part of the solution? Or just generally, it'd be good to understand how you think the industry can encourage youngsters both to join and also give them a career.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that data centers are really, really complex environments, more and more so. So previously IT was quite simple, and the way that we controlled the cooling systems and the power, they were all kind of quite well-known architectures and quite simple to manage, and you could skill up quite relatively quickly and manage a data center. Now, if you're wanting to know all the parts to it, you need to be an expert in AI and machine learning. You need to be an expert in liquid cooling, maybe. Some really complex technologies that are only just starting to emerge. And with that, I think that gives opportunity for people who there's so much breadth there that you could find an interest, you could get trained and get skilled up and offer real value in one of those areas or many of those areas. So I think that's one thing, is that we need to recognize that the amount of technology that's involved is broad and complex and exciting. You're right. I mean, for a lot of these people coming out of university, the graduates, this is the future, and they're starting to have more and more of that within the courses. And if we can say that data centers are an environment where we're fast paced and we're using the most modern, up to date technology, come and be part of the system that underpins everything that you do on a daily basis. I think that's really where we've got to pitch it.
And in terms of I suppose longer term, just the ways in which, do you think the industry's sort of career path, it strikes me as a bit random at the moment. Do you think there's a case for formalizing it, having training modules, helping people learn new technology, and even our good old friend collaboration between IT and facilities, maybe? Just thoughts as to ways in which careers can be better shaped, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think there are courses out there, and you can go and become accredited at data center design and operations. And I think we do have a little bit of a path there. I think I'd like to see more vendors maybe taking offering that training expertise to people. So if you're interested, I want to learn about how do I maintain this new liquid cooling device that's coming in. We're very familiar with air cooling. We've been forced to go down liquid cooling because we've got to put 30 kilowatts in a rack. I have absolutely no idea. I'm not a plumber, and I'm terrified what I do if I touch this. A bit more training around certification around how do I become an expert in this field, or whether it's digital twin. We're offering certification on how to build and how to calibrate digital twins so that you can use them in operations. So I think I'd like to see more of the industry kind of take that on, and maybe we need a kind of an overview from the data center as a whole, and we can establish that you can get trained in certain things, and then when you're certified, people recognize that you can go and do that role, anywhere within the business. So I think that's important. As we're sort of seeing the data centers are getting more complex, they're also being pushed to the limit in all areas. We used to be able to sit back and kind of over-engineer them a little bit from cooling and power perspective, and kind of we'll put it in, it'll be all right, don't worry. We'll run 2N, we'll spend the money on very cold cooling air, we don't have to worry about it. Now there's all sorts of legislation coming around use of carbon, use of energy. The challenge of high density really is, I mean, every single customer I'm talking to at the moment are trying to deploy cabinets 15 kilowatts plus, 30 kilowatts, and they just haven't got the design. The rooms were never designed for that. So unless they're lucky enough to be building something from scratch, they're running around trying to figure out, well, where do we shoehorn this very high kilowatt load into our space? So I think collaboration, this is no longer just an IT problem that you can throw over to facilities and go house that for me, because facilities just, they can push back and go, well, that's not what the room was designed for. So everyone has to collaborate. There's a lot of great tech that can help with that challenge. So that's where digital twins come into their own. So I think, bringing everyone together around this central area, testing out different positions, testing out different engineering solutions to quite challenging problem. And I think that's what's exciting. So I think that's when you can bring people in, you can learn a lot from technology. Simulation, I mean, it reveals the unknown. That's the kind of the beauty of it. So I think there's a lot there, and I think kind of people will have to rely on technology more heavily as we're put under more pressure. But I think we're kind of in the right place now for that to happen.
And in terms of, I suppose the future, if we carry on as we are, do you think this sort of, I call it virtual or talked about skills crisis, which I'd say no one seems to be pressing the panic button yet? Do you think that will eventually become, as you say, because there'll be so much competition, so either prices will go through the roof and that will have an impact, but just your thoughts as to, is there a danger at all of it happening, or do you think because of the smart technologies coming along and perhaps a slight increase in addressing the personnel skill shortage we're going to get by, or would you worry that come to, I don't know, 2028, just a random date, the industry will say, whoa, we've run out of people, we can't build enough, we can't build any more data center, or we can't staff the ones we've built? Just how bad might it get, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a hard one to know how bad before it all falls to pieces. I think it will be a slow, as businesses struggle to hire, the people will be stretched and put under more pressure, and that's where we see mistakes kind of creep in. And it's already pretty well documented that human error in data centers is getting more and more costly. You make a mistake and you bring down an application, and the business impact is almost impossible to quantify. Sometimes it's so high. So I think that's where we'll see it as sort of a slow erosion of robustness and reliability as people are put under pressure. Now, hopefully, technology can come and sort of help and lend a hand. But with all these things, I mean, even with sort of the AI and machine learning, you can't just 100% trust these systems to just run and operate. You do need an expert there to sort of oversee and look at the recommendations that the systems are giving. So I don't think we can just sit back and go, "Ah, we'll be all right. Technology will save us." And I think we'll start to see the impact if we don't make a change. Yeah.
So I suppose the obvious final question would be: are you optimistic then that the situation can be turned around and there's the will to do it, or would you be slightly nervous that, despite all the talk about it, as you say, you've been talked about for 20 years at data center conferences, maybe there still isn't enough action? Do you think it will take so I don't know, a major data center meltdown, and then everyone go, oh right, okay, I get it now, and suddenly everyone will start, getting apprenticeships up and right? What, I don't know, just your
Yeah.
thoughts. Are you
Yeah.
in the glass half full or half empty camp?
I'm always a pretty optimistic person, so I don't like to look at the doom of gloom. And we traditionally have hired graduates and then trained them up, and then tried our best to retain them. But for something like for Cadence, if generally we'll train them up in operating and designing digital twins, and then if they leave with those skills and go and work in operational sites, taking our technology there. So that's no real problem for us, I don't think. I'd like to say that we're going to get sort of an influx of talent by putting a bit of focus on the graduate area, university courses. It's going to take time. I don't think you can kind of click your fingers and we'll suddenly have thousands of qualified engineers. And also you have to skill those up. So it takes us probably 18 months before our engineers are kind of fully skilled up to be able to run projects on their own. So I think we'll have to see. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we'll, especially when we see a lot of our experts retiring, that we'll try and bring the next level through. People like me in my mid-40s, I don't know, I've probably got another 20 years before I'm at that level. I'm hoping there's a few people that are at my age that are sticking around. I do think the thing about data centers is when you're in. It's such an exciting industry, and when you realize what it does, all that it supports, kind of have to stop yourself talking about it in the pub when people ask you, because it is great and it is really exciting. And I think we just need to somehow deliver that to those graduates coming in thinking about a career, because it is, for me, one of the most exciting, one of the most progressive areas, and it just touches so much of our daily lives, even though it is a little bit of a kind of a hidden source for power. So yeah, I think I'm hopeful. I don't know. Don't hold me to it. If a couple of years' time,
No,
you have me back.
I agree with you 100%. It's a mystery slightly that, because it's such an exciting industry, as you say, that underpins the whole digital world that everyone's sort of enjoying, yet we can't convert it. And also, I mean, you even mentioned, okay, the power thing's an issue, but I was just anecdotally watching a news program this morning in the fashion industry. Apparently that is 10% of the world's, sort of carbon footprint. So, that dwarfs, makes the data center seem nothing in comparison. So I don't know whether it just needs to be a bit more, upfront and proud of itself and sell its benefits, as you say, rather than carry on. Well, it all goes on behind these four closed walls, and we'll keep quiet about it. I don't know.
Yeah. That's definitely true. I mean, the very first films where you'd see a data center coming in, like in a Bond film, you go like, oh, we're starting to get some press, but now a lot of it's negative. You're right. When something goes wrong, it's always, oh, actually, the reason half of this company's people couldn't fly home is because the data center melted down. So it's usually negative. So I do think we've got to do some positive press around how good it is as a place to work, and then hopefully, we won't be struggling for people in the future.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, lovely to chat to you. Some great insights, and we will maybe catch up at the end of the year and find out what happened in the meantime. But at least for now, Mark, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.